I proposed to my girlfriend Jasmine after 3 amazing years together. We had it all planned out: spring wedding, honeymoon in Bali, and the perfect life ahead. At least that's what I thought. As wedding planning took over, I noticed changes in her. The arguments increased, her demands grew, and her true colors emerged. During our worst fight, she looked at me with cold eyes and sneered. "You think you're my only option?" With unexpected calmness, I simply replied, "Nope." Let me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button and stick around to see what happened next. I met Jasmine at a tech conference in San Francisco 4 years ago. I was there representing my software company, giving a presentation on our latest security protocol. She approached me after my talk, curious about my thoughts on artificial intelligence ethics. Her confidence immediately caught my attention. She wore a smart business suit, had perfect makeup, and spoke with such intelligence that I was instantly intrigued. "Your perspective on data privacy was refreshing," she said, handing me her business card. "Most people in this industry only care about profit margins." I felt a connection I had never experienced before. We exchanged numbers and agreed to meet for dinner that weekend. Our first date was at an upscale restaurant with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. The conversation flowed effortlessly. She told me about her work in marketing for a luxury brand, her ambitions to become a marketing director, and her passion for travel. I shared my journey as a software engineer, my love for solving complex problems, and my dream of eventually starting my own tech company. "I rarely meet men who can keep up with me intellectually," she admitted over dessert, reaching for my hand across the table. Those early months were nothing short of magical. We discovered our shared interests, quickly hiking on weekends, watching documentaries on Sunday evenings, and exploring new restaurants around the city. We both enjoyed intellectual discussions about books, politics, and technology. Our differences complemented each other perfectly. I was more analytical and reserved while she was outgoing and creative. Together, we balanced each other out. Within 6 months, I introduced Jasmine to my family and close friends. My best friend Alex was initially skeptical. "She seems great, Brian, but almost too perfect," he warned one night, when Jasmine had stepped away from our table at a bar. "Just take it slow, okay?" But Alex's concerns faded, as Jasmine charmed him with thoughtful questions about his photography business, and even referred a client his way. My parents adored her from the start, especially when she brought my mom her favorite flowers and spent hours looking through old family albums. Jasmine's family welcomed me just as warmly. Her father was a retired professor, and we bonded over discussions about the future of technology. Her mother taught me how to cook Jasmine's favorite childhood dishes. Everything seemed to fit perfectly. After dating for a year, we decided to move in together. We found a beautiful apartment downtown, with a view of the city skyline. Combining our lives felt natural and exciting. We spent weekends shopping for furniture, debating paint colors, and turning our apartment into a home. Our careers flourished alongside our relationship. I received a significant promotion to senior software architect, and Jasmine successfully transitioned to a more prestigious marketing firm with better opportunities for advancement. We celebrated each other's successes with nice dinners and weekend getaways. We even adopted a golden retriever named Baxter, who quickly became the center of our little family. Our Instagram photos of hikes with Baxter and cozy evenings at home received countless comments about what a perfect couple we were. Our lives fell into comfortable routines: Sunday brunches at our favorite cafe, monthly dinner parties with friends, and annual traditions like our summer road trip up the Pacific Coast Highway. We talked about the future, frequently marriage, eventually buying a house in the suburbs, having 2 kids. "I never thought I would find someone who fits so perfectly into my life," I told her on our 2nd anniversary. "You're everything I ever wanted." Looking back, I realize now that I was incredibly lucky to have found what I thought was the one. Every relationship has its challenges, but we seemed to navigate ours with minimal drama. We disagreed occasionally about small things, but always managed to compromise. At least that's how it seemed at the time. During our 3rd year together, I decided it was time to propose. I spent months planning the perfect moment during our vacation to Hawaii. I arranged a private sunset dinner on the beach, hired a photographer to capture the moment, and picked out a diamond ring that I knew matched her sophisticated taste. When I got down on one knee with the waves crashing behind us, Jasmine covered her mouth in surprise. Tears filled her eyes as she said yes, and we spent the evening calling our families and friends to share the happy news. "You've made me the happiest man alive," I told her, as we sipped champagne in our hotel room that night. "We're going to have the most amazing life together," she replied, admiring how the ring caught the light. Everyone was thrilled for us. My mother immediately started talking about wedding venues, and Jasmine's parents offered to help with the costs. Our friends organized an engagement party where we were showered with love and congratulations. The excitement of planning our future together was all-consuming. We created shared documents for wedding ideas, honeymoon destinations, and future home features. I thought this was the beginning of our happily ever after. I had no idea that our engagement would actually start to reveal cracks in what I had believed was a solid foundation. The first signs of trouble appeared subtly. So subtle, in fact, that I dismissed them as temporary stress or misunderstandings. About 2 months after our engagement, Jasmine began criticizing my ideas and preferences more frequently. "Brian, you can't seriously think burgundy is a good accent color for a spring wedding," she said dismissively, when I suggested it might complement the venue we were considering. "That restaurant you suggested for the rehearsal dinner, it's way too casual. We need to make an impression on my colleagues." These comments seemed minor at first. Everyone gets stressed during wedding planning, right? But gradually, the power dynamic in our relationship shifted. Decisions that we once made together were now being made unilaterally by Jasmine. From our wedding venue to our weekend plans, she took control without consultation. I also noticed changes in Jasmine's behavior when we socialized with her new colleagues from the luxury marketing firm. These were people with connections to wealth and influence, and Jasmine seemed desperate to impress them. She would interrupt me when I was speaking, laugh a bit too loudly at their jokes, and sometimes make subtle jabs at my career. "Brian works in software," she would say with a slight tone that somehow made my successful career sound mundane. "Nothing as exciting as what we do." I felt uncomfortable but convinced myself this was just Jasmine networking and building her professional relationships. I told myself it was my own insecurity making me overthink these interactions. As wedding planning intensified, so did the tensions between us. Jasmine insisted on an extravagant celebration that went far beyond the budget we had agreed upon. When I expressed concerns about costs, she became defensive. "It's the most important day of our lives, Brian. Do you want us to look cheap in front of everyone?" She had visions of a destination wedding at a luxury resort, designer dresses and gourmet catering that would cost more than my annual salary. My suggestions for more reasonable alternatives were met with eye rolls or outright dismissal. "Your family traditions are sweet, Brian, but they're a bit outdated for the sophisticated wedding we're planning," she said, when I mentioned incorporating my grandparents' anniversary blessing into our ceremony. One evening, I discovered that Jasmine had already put down non-refundable deposits on venues without consulting me. When confronted, she acted as if I was being difficult. "I knew you would overthink it, and we would lose the date. Sometimes decisions need to be made quickly in this industry." The guest list became another battleground. Jasmine wanted to invite numerous business associates and distant acquaintances, while suggesting we limit my guest list to immediate family and closest friends. "Do you really need to invite Alex? He always seems uncomfortable at formal events," she said, trying to exclude my best friend, who had voiced concerns about her changing behavior. "And your college roommates. We need to make room for people who are actually relevant to our future." Her words stung, but I tried to rationalize her behavior as wedding anxiety. Everyone warned us that wedding planning could be stressful for couples. Maybe this was normal. Then came the more concerning changes. Jasmine became increasingly secretive with her phone. She would take calls in another room, quickly switch screens when I walked by, and had suddenly enabled a passcode. When I questioned this, she accused me of being paranoid and controlling. "I deal with confidential client information, Brian. Not everything is about you." There were also the unexplained absences, work events that seemed to pop up at the last minute, often in the evenings or on weekends. She would return home late, sometimes smelling faintly of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. Her warmth toward me diminished noticeably. The affectionate texts throughout the day stopped. Physical intimacy became rare and felt obligatory when it happened. She no longer asked about my day or seemed interested in my work achievements. Instead, criticism became her default mode of communication with me. My clothes were too casual. My friends were holding me back professionally, and my career ambitions were limited. Nothing I did seemed good enough anymore. Most painful was when she began comparing me unfavorably to her ex-boyfriend Thomas. He had been a finance major, they had dated in college, and according to Jasmine's new narrative, he had always been destined for greatness. Thomas just made partner at his investment firm, she mentioned casually over dinner one night. He always had such clear goals and the drive to achieve them. The implication was clear. Unlike Thomas I, lacked ambition and vision. These comparisons happened with increasing frequency, always positioning me as the lesser option. Then came the breaking point. We were having yet another argument about the wedding budget in our living room. I had just discovered a charge for $20,000 for a wedding dress, far exceeding what we had agreed was reasonable. "This is getting out of hand, Jasmine," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We need to stick to the budget we agreed on." "The budget you agreed on," she corrected me, her voice cold. "I never thought it was realistic. We're talking about one day versus our financial future," I explained. "Starting our marriage in debt for a party doesn't make sense." Her expression shifted to something I had never seen before, a mixture of contempt and superiority. "Maybe if you were more ambitious, money wouldn't be such a concern," she snapped. "Thomas never worried about price tags." "This isn't about Thomas," I replied, feeling my patience wearing thin. "No, it's about me settling for a comfortable life with you when I could have had so much more," she said, each word dripping with resentment. The room seemed to go silent as the weight of her words hung in the air between us. "You know what your problem is, Brian. You think you're my only option," she sneered, looking directly into my eyes with a coldness that chilled me. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The fog of denial lifted, and I saw our relationship with sudden clarity. Without anger or defensiveness, I simply replied, "Nope." Then I grabbed my keys and walked out of our apartment, leaving Jasmine standing there with her mouth open in surprise. That single word and action would be the beginning of the end of our relationship. I spent that night at Alex's apartment, lying awake on his couch, as I replayed the last few years of my relationship with Jasmine. With distance from her influence, I began to see patterns I had previously ignored. The gradual isolation from my friends, the constant criticism disguised as helping me improve, the increasing demands and decreasing appreciation. All the classic signs of a manipulative relationship that I had been too in love to recognize. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. Jasmine alternated between angry texts accusing me of being childish for walking out during an argument and tearful voice messages begging me to come home so we could work things out. I silenced my phone, needing space to think clearly for the first time in months. "She's been different ever since you got engaged," Alex confirmed over coffee the next morning. "The Jasmine I met years ago would never have talked to you the way she did last night." After our conversation, I made the decision to investigate my growing suspicions. I started with our shared finances. Reviewing our credit card statements, I discovered multiple charges at upscale restaurants and hotels on evenings when Jasmine claimed to be working late. These weren't business expenses she was charging to our joint account. They were deliberately hidden among legitimate charges. Next, I remembered our shared tablet at home, which was still logged into Jasmine's email account. Gathering my courage, I went back to our apartment, while I knew Jasmine would be at work. Once inside, I found the tablet and began searching through her messages. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were dozens of exchanges between Jasmine and her ex Thomas, spanning the past 6 months. Their initial reconnection seemed innocent enough, alumni from the same university catching up. But the messages quickly evolved into flirtatious exchanges, complaints about me and our relationship, and eventually plans to meet in person. "Brian is a nice guy, but there's no excitement with him," she wrote in one message. "I keep wondering if I made the right choice all those years ago." Thomas's responses were equally disturbing. "You've always deserved someone who can match your ambition and lifestyle. It's not too late to change your mind." They had been meeting secretly throughout our engagement. Coffee dates that turned into dinners, reminiscing about their college relationship, discussing what might have been. In recent messages, Jasmine had been actively considering reconnecting with Thomas, who had recently made partner at his firm, and was, in her words, finally becoming the man I always knew he could be. The betrayal cut deep, but I forced myself to keep investigating. I needed the full picture before deciding how to proceed. I contacted a lawyer to understand my rights regarding our shared assets and the apartment lease. I documented everything I found and secured my personal financial accounts. I reached out to friends and family, rebuilding connections that had weakened during my relationship with Jasmine. My parents offered their guest room if I needed a place to stay. My sister helped me research new apartments. Alex connected me with a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma. I felt supported in a way I hadn't in a long time. While gathering my essential documents from our home office, I made an unexpected discovery: Jasmine's personal journal tucked behind some books on our shelf. I hesitated, knowing this was an invasion of privacy, but given what I already knew about her betrayal, I felt justified in looking for more answers. The journal entries were devastating. Jasmine had been maintaining our relationship primarily for financial security while she advanced in her career. She appreciated that I was stable and reliable, but found me boring compared to previous relationships. There were detailed plans to go through with the wedding for the gifts and social media attention, with calculations of what she might receive in a potential divorce settlement down the line. Page after page contained comparisons between me and various other men in her life, including Thomas. According to her entries, I was the safe choice, the fallback option, while she kept her eyes open for something better. She wrote about showing off her engagement ring to maintain appearances, while criticizing me behind my back to her friends. "The ring is impressive enough to make everyone jealous," she wrote, "even if Brian himself is just adequate." Armed with this knowledge and evidence, I prepared for the confrontation. I packed my essential belongings and arranged for a friend to help me move the rest later. I transferred my portion of the rent to cover the next 2 months, giving Jasmine time to find a new roommate or a different living situation. I made arrangements to stay with Alex temporarily until I found my own place. When I returned to the apartment that evening, Jasmine was waiting. She had clearly been crying, her usually perfect makeup slightly smudged. She rushed toward me as I entered. "Brian, thank God you're home. I've been worried sick. We need to talk about what happened." I remained calm and composed. "Yes, we do. I'm sorry about what I said," she began, her voice softening into the sweet tone I had once found so endearing. "I was stressed and frustrated about the wedding. You know I didn't mean any of it." "Actually, I think you meant every word," I replied, setting my backpack down. "And it made me realize some things about our relationship." Jasmine's expression changed, becoming more guarded. "What are you talking about? It was just a fight. Couples fight. This wasn't just a fight, Jasmine. It was a moment of honesty from you that I needed to hear." I calmly laid out what I had discovered: the secret meetings with Thomas, the credit card charges, the journal entries, the plans she had been making behind my back. With each revelation, her face cycled through shock, anger, and panic. "You went through my private things," she exclaimed, trying to shift the blame. "You had no right. Maybe not," I acknowledged. "But you had no right to lie to me every day for months, to compare me constantly to Thomas, to plan a future with me while keeping him as a backup option." She switched tactics, tears flowing freely now. "It wasn't serious with Thomas. I was just confused. The wedding planning was stressful, and I had moments of doubt. Everyone does. I chose you, Brian. I love you." "No, Jasmine. You settled for me while waiting for something better to come along. You made that very clear. I'll break all contact with Thomas. she promised desperately. "We can postpone the wedding. Go to counseling. I'll prove to you that you're the one I want." I shook my head. "The problem isn't just Thomas. It's that you see me as an option, a placeholder, until something better comes along. I deserve to be someone's choice, not their backup plan." Her demeanor shifted again, this time to anger. "You're throwing away 3 years over one mistake. Over some stupid journal entries that don't mean anything." "I'm not throwing away anything. I'm recognizing what's already been lost. Our engagement is over, Jasmine. Our relationship is over." I handed her back the engagement ring. "I've paid my share of rent for the next 2 months. I'll have the rest of my things moved out by the weekend." As I turned to leave, Jasmine made one last desperate attempt, her voice breaking. "You'll regret this. You won't find anyone like me again." I paused at the door and looked back at her. That's what I'm counting on. The days following our breakup were some of the most challenging I've ever experienced. There was the practical side of dismantling a shared life, canceling wedding arrangements, returning gifts, and notifying guests that the wedding was off. Each email and phone call required explaining the unexplainable to people who had been excited for our future together. "What happened?" my aunt asked when I called. "You two seemed so perfect together. We weren't as compatible as I thought," was all I could say, not wanting to share the painful details. Then, there were the social complications. Jasmine had begun spreading her version of events among our mutual friends. According to her, I had unreasonable expectations, had become controlling about wedding expenses, and had overreacted to an innocent reconnection with an old friend. Some people believed her without question, and I lost several friendships in the process. "Just tell them what really happened," Alex urged when I showed him the text messages I was receiving from former friends. "They've made their choice," I replied. "I'm not going to drag everyone into a public battle." My decision to maintain dignity and privacy meant accepting that some people would think poorly of me, at least temporarily. The truth had a way of revealing itself eventually, and I didn't need to accelerate that process through messy public accusations. The emotional impact hit me in waves. Some mornings I would wake up feeling liberated and confident in my decision. Other days, the weight of loss and betrayal felt crushing. I missed the Jasmine I thought I had known. I missed the future we had planned together. I even missed Baxter, our dog, who remained with Jasmine since her work schedule was more accommodating for pet care. Moving into my new apartment was both therapeutic and difficult. The space was entirely mine, free from Jasmine's influence, but also empty of the life we had built together. I focused on creating an environment that reflected my own tastes and preferences, many of which I had compromised on during our relationship. I painted the walls the deep blue color Jasmine had always vetoed. I arranged my books by genre rather than by color, as she had insisted. I bought comfortable furniture instead of the stylish but impractical pieces she had preferred. Each decision, no matter how small, helped me reclaim my identity. The friends who stood by me became crucial to my healing process. Alex regularly invited me to photography exhibitions and hiking trips to keep me active and engaged. My college roommates, whom Jasmine had tried to exclude from our lives, organized weekend gatherings that reminded me of who I was before my relationship. "We missed the real Brian," my friend David told me during a camping trip. "It's good to have you back." I reconnected with coworkers through weekly happy hours and industry meetups. My sister visited more frequently, bringing her kids, who filled my apartment with noise and energy. My parents called every Sunday, offering support without judgment. While rebuilding my social connections, I also focused on my career with renewed energy. Without the constant criticism and comparison to others, I found my confidence returning. I volunteered for challenging projects at work, contributed innovative solutions, and received recognition from senior leadership. "Your performance these past few months has been exceptional," my manager noted during my review. "Whatever changes you've made in your approach, they're working." 6 months after the breakup, I was offered a promotion to lead architect on a major new project. The role came with greater responsibility, a significant salary increase, and the opportunity to build a team from scratch. It was exactly the kind of professional growth Jasmine had claimed I was incapable of achieving. Therapy became an essential part of my journey. Weekly sessions helped me process the betrayal and understand the patterns in the relationship that I had missed. My therapist challenged me to examine why I had tolerated Jasmine's behavior for so long and helped me identify the warning signs to avoid in future relationships. "You prioritized her happiness at the expense of your own," he observed during one session. "That's not sustainable in any relationship." I developed new interests and rediscovered old passions that had been set aside during my relationship with Jasmine. I took cooking classes, joined a local basketball league, and started learning Spanish, something I had always wanted to do but Jasmine had dismissed as impractical. These activities not only filled my time but also connected me with new people who knew me only as I was now, not as half of Brian and Jasmine. There was freedom in being seen for myself rather than through the lens of a relationship. About 8 months after our breakup, I received unexpected news through a mutual friend. Jasmine's attempt to reconnect romantically with Thomas had ultimately backfired. According to our friend, Thomas had been interested only in a casual relationship, using Jasmine for companionship and validation without any intention of commitment. He told her he wasn't ready to settle down with anyone, our friend reported. Apparently, he's been dating multiple people simultaneously the whole time. While part of me felt a grim satisfaction at this revelation, I mostly felt sorry for Jasmine. She had sacrificed a genuine relationship for the illusion of something better, only to discover that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. A few weeks later, a long email appeared in my inbox from Jasmine. It was filled with regret and apologies, acknowledging her manipulation and betrayal in our relationship. She confessed to having taken me for granted and realizing too late what she had lost. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she wrote. "I thought there would always be something better out there, but I was chasing a fantasy. What we had was real, and I destroyed it." She asked if we could meet for coffee to talk about the possibility of trying again. For a brief moment, I considered it. The familiar pull of our history and the comfort of returning to something known was tempting. But then I remembered her cold eyes as she sneered. "You think you're my only option?" I remembered the journal entries calculating what she might gain from our marriage and eventual divorce. I remembered how small and inadequate she had made me feel day after day. I never responded to her email. My silence was not meant to be cruel, but to maintain the boundaries I had established. Engaging would only reopen wounds that were finally beginning to heal. Some chapters need to remain closed for new ones to begin. The most valuable lesson from this painful experience was learning to recognize my own worth. I had allowed someone to treat me as an option rather than a priority, to compare me constantly to others and find me lacking. Never again would I accept being made to feel that I was not enough. I learned that walking away from a toxic relationship, even one with history and emotional investment, is an act of self-respect and courage. It's not about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who sees and appreciates your value, who chooses you every day just as you choose them. The experience taught me to identify manipulation and to set healthy boundaries in all relationships. I became more attuned to red flags like constant criticism, comparisons to others, and attempts to isolate me from friends and family. These awareness tools would protect me in future relationships. Perhaps most importantly, I discovered that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you doubt your worth. The peace and freedom I found in rebuilding my life on my own terms far outweighed any benefits of staying in a relationship that diminished me. Today, nearly a year after that fateful argument, I feel genuine gratitude for Jasmine's brutal honesty in that moment. Her words, "You think you're my only option," ultimately freed me from a future of being undervalued and betrayed. Sometimes you need to lose what you thought you wanted to find what you truly deserve. I am dating again now, approaching new relationships with greater wisdom and clearer boundaries. I know what I bring to a relationship, and I am patient enough to wait for someone who recognizes and appreciates that. When that person comes along, they will be choosing me as their priority, not just another option. Have you ever been treated as someone's backup plan rather than their first choice? What did you do when you realized it? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more relationship stories and lessons learned. Remember, you deserve to be someone's choice, not just their option. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to walk away from any relationship that does not honor your worth.